The news cycle ended, out of sight, out of mind, not my problem. Am I horrible? That's the honest feeling of this flawed sinner. Am I the only one who felt like this after the hurricane in Puerto Rico? I don't think I am. Coming on the heels of huge storms in Houston and Florida, this Category 5 Hurricane Maria hit. Most of America already felt a storm fatigue when they heard about it in the news. Then I arrived in Puerto Rico. It was 2 months after the hurricane, and many areas looked like the storm just happened yesterday. I didn't know it until it was too late, but I was there in the rainy season. Those National Weather Service alarms just kept ringing. Humid, dank, and flooded streets greeted our team. Fallen trees rested atop power lines and communication cables that struggled to hold them up. Cables covered the roads so that the only way to get where you needed to go was to drive over them. Many times standing water was nearby, introducing the possibility of electrocution to those passing through. Roofs were ripped off of the top of structures, and families tried to make do with cheap blue tarps to just tide them over until they could scrounge up enough money to get a proper roof. Some roads became rivers and an outlet for the water. Other roads, as well as houses, were falling off the sides of mountains as rushing water undercut the ground that once supported them. After Hurricane Maria, healthy trees were far less predominant, and some areas looked post-apocalyptic or even burnt by the salt water that was carried in by 150+ mile-per-hour winds off the Atlantic Ocean. I was told prior to my arrival that 80% of the island is without power, and some families are forced to drink mudded storm water that rushes off of those mountains. It is bad, even if it were a third world country, but it's not. It's the USA. I couldn't help my feelings turning from not my problem to, dear God, how can we help when this problem is so large? I had no answers, but I knew there was a huge need and Orphans Promise had a job to do. While there, it became very clear that what we could accomplish in a week would not be enough. But thanks to our incredible donors and partners, we were able to do a tremendous amount of good. In partnership with CBN International, we were able to provide clean water to over 25,000 people through mobile water purification units that can be powered off of a car battery. This clean water allows Puerto Ricans to no longer drink muddy and untreated river or storm water. Additionally, to combat power shortages and shorter days during the winter months, we provided over 260 solar-powered lanterns and headlamps to several areas that we visited. Their gratitude was so moving. When I saw these storm victims receive the simple gift of light, the smiles of these caregivers literally lit up with the light that was now able to illuminate these dark rooms where the orphans and vulnerable children that they cared for reside. In other places, we delivered food and rations. In one hard-hit area, we provided over 850 Thanksgiving meals. In some instances, we provided generators to facilities that lacked power. In other instances, we repaired 8 exposed roofs, trading in cheap blue tarps for shiny new tin roofs that now ping with the sound of rain that no longer floods child bedrooms. In some places, we just prayed, walking into church and worshiping alongside the residents. That was powerful. They called our team forward, and in front of the congregation of roughly 250, they prayed for us, anointed us with oil. After they hugged us, the tears said everything that words couldn't. Later in the trip, we made our way to a school where we distributed 25 backpacks to children who lost the bulk of their education materials and replaced furniture in their kindergarten classroom. We were at a school where flood levels reached 10 feet high on a 12-foot tall school building. When water levels subsided, there weren't a lot of usable materials left in the school. In all of this, Matthew 25:40 rang loudly in my head. Truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these, my brothers and sisters in mine, you did for me. What Orphans Promise was able to do was remarkable. However, there were so many areas where we wanted to do more, but we couldn't because the need was too large for the resources at the time. One dark and rainy evening, I entered a home for children with special needs. The roof and several walls were ripped off of the large 2-story structure, and I walked through a doorway of what seemed like an open-air patio, but was never intended to be that. This room was their dining room just weeks before I entered. But the absence of walls and a roof left the area unrecognizable. Inside there was pooling water and completely covered the floor. Exposed wires were hanging from ceilings and rain continued to fall. To call this a hazard would be a tremendous understatement. I tell you all this because I want you to know that Orphans Promise did an absolutely incredible thing. But the job is not done. I heard a news report that stated that the island would not have power restored for 18 months after the disaster. That's time when these kids will go through blisteringly hot summers and potentially more hurricanes. If this is something that you would like to help us with, feel free to make a donation. There's a link in the description. But personally, I just want to thank you. Thank you for remembering the people of Puerto Rico. And thank you for giving hope and promising love to the people of Puerto Rico, even after the news has stopped talking.